All right, welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
Johnny Sue on the ones and twos, and today we have a Convo Couch collaboration. With us, our good friends, Jason Burmis and Steve Poikinen are here. How you doing, gentlemen?
Fantastic. Super.
Jay.
How are
Is
we?
he
I'm
there?
doing well.
How you doing, buddy?
Very well.
It's great to see you. Great to talk to you guys. We're going to talk censorship today,
Yep.
and I don't think we could have picked a better group of people to talk about censorship with. Okay. We are chilling out 1 second, guys. Let's make sure we're good. All right, we're up on all the channels. How you guys doing? Everybody's good. Everybody's in. There's the thumbnail. It's looking good. On the Rockfin, we got a few people here. We need more over at the Rockfin. Let's see who's on the YouTube. YouTube, like, share, subscribe, get it out there before they censor our censorship show. So that's what's going on, too. Jay, we started talking yesterday. They had the hearing, the Senate hearing about censorship. I said they called the lords of censorship themselves down to the Senate floor, and that is Jack Dorsey of Twitter, Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, and Pichai of Google, right? To ask him a lot of questions. And it was a lot of back and forth. It seems like it was really politicized. The Democrats were constantly blaming the Republicans of trying to work the refs. That's the new thing. You're trying to work the refs because, you know, even though Donald Trump has been censored 65 times and Joe Biden hasn't been censored at all, even though they had the right to censor the Hunter Biden New York Post article because of they didn't want to put out hacked material without the proper sources. I'd ask him what Russiagate was with the Steele dossier. It was just a back and forth, and we really didn't come to any great solutions. What were your thoughts overall? What happened on that whole Senate hearing? And let's just talk about censorship as it applies, because this, for me, was big.
Yeah, it felt to me like it was just a call for more censorship throughout. I mean, in the extremes, right? You had the people on the left that said this was a witch hunt. They spouted the same talking point of this is a Russian misinformation and disinformation campaign, despite the fact that Jack Dorsey originally, when asked, said that they had to overturn their decision 2 or 3 days later because the material was not hacked, saying the only reason that the censorship occurred was because it was presumed to be hacked. Also Johnny nonsense on its face. But then those on the right were still like, well, why isn't this Iranian leader censored? Why wasn't the CCP censored when they talked about COVID 1984 coming from the United States? Why aren't we censoring Holocaust deniers? Why don't we throw conspiracy theories in there? You know, militias are another good thing. Whitmer was almost kidnapped, you know? So all these talking points, at the end of the day, you had this hearing that lasted, I think, a little under 3 hours, and 2+ of it was really about more censorship, not less, no real accountability. In fact, at one point, they put it into the record that Jack Dorsey said that, you know, basically Twitter has no way to influence elections. Then what the hell are we doing here? You know, it's pretty sad when I'm sympathizing with Ted Cruz.
I know.
Yeah.
We had to count on Ted Cruz.
I don't think he did that great of a job. You know, first of all, his audio was terrible. His mic was, his cam was shaking. You know, his talking points were all conservative and liberal, right? Every talking point, even when they talked about it, it was putting it into that left-right paradigm, okay? Not going beyond that, not saying, hey, what about Julian Assange? What about journalists out there? What about the fact that this wasn't hacked material and all this stuff is legitimate, yet you're letting more government officials spout off how it's not? There was just so much about it I disliked. Not much I did like. I'll be quite honest with you. You know, even when they were talking about Google, for instance, being a monopoly in a separate instance, it was Klobuchar, you know, somebody that they put up there during the Democratic primaries. She had her talking points, and now she's taken on big tech. If you have the opportunity to talk to the head of Google and you're not pointing out that, wait a minute, you're not a monopoly, but you have the first largest search engine in the world, Google, the second largest search engine in the world, YouTube. It's also the first largest video platform in the world. You also have the first largest operating system platform around the world in Android. You also work with the National Security Agency and NASA in quantum computing and artificial intelligence. But no, you're not a monopoly. It's a joke. It's a bad, bad joke, my friend.
And there's just been an encroaching, obviously, on press freedoms. We've seen YouTubers' channels be shut down left and right. But what do you guys think is going to happen after the elections regarding censorship? Steve, I want to hear what your thoughts are on that.
Well, in every simulated event that the WHO and Johns Hopkins and Bill Gates and the U.S. government and the people who participated in these, from Dark Winter through Event 201, Crimson Contagion, all of these things, lockstep with the Rockefeller Foundation, there's a part in there where they say we're going to have to turn off the internet. And we're going to have to clamp down on dissidents, and we're going to have to round up people who are agents of disinformation. So I don't want to be like extra doom and gloom, and I'm not making a prediction here. I'm just, what I'm saying is that we've already been able to read that there's a plan for more censorship, for a temporary dismantling of the internet, and literally rounding up people who are speaking outside of the narrative. Now, Whitney Webb was on my show on Sunday, and about 30 seconds into that show, she was like, "Hey, you should be paying attention to Philadelphia because some really crazy shit's about to pop off in Philadelphia." And 24 hours later, a bunch of really crazy shit popped off in Philadelphia, and it's still going on.
Yeah.
So to that, what I'll say is the conditions are just about perfect for a complete clampdown of what a government that deals in and peddles conspiracy theories, and we witnessed that in the Senate hearing the other day with Russiagate and Iranian hackers and all the rest of the greatest hits that they played for all of us to listen to. We've got the right conditions for it. We've got the right kind of chaos for it. So it is a bit unsettling to think that, by next Tuesday, we could be living in a very different world.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's we could, and people are more worried about the election as to which puppet is going to win, but the reality is there are other things that are far more consequential than that. Jason, what is your opinion on where we're going to go specifically regarding independent media, independent commentators on YouTube after the election? Because shouldn't it dwindle if they're not going to have an election to really manipulate the algorithm and manipulate the stories for?
Well, first of all, we have to listen to what they're openly saying. I mean, Zuckerberg and Dorsey have openly said that anybody who declares a winner outside of authoritative news sources is going to be immediately censored. And they already have the mechanisms in place. I mean, this is what they told us. They told us before the hearings, and they reiterated it again because that's what people want. Again, the left that wanted more censorship demanded that answer, and they were ready for it. So as far as like old school independent media, who's left? I mean, let's be quite honest about it. Who's left that's been around for 10, 15 years? It's me, it's James Corbett, it's Luke Rudkowski. You could argue Gary Franchi, but he's gone pretty, left-right paradigm, and I love Gary. That Bin Laden story, right or wrong, or interesting indeed, and got the attention, I guess, of the alt-right or whatever you want to call it. And then Mark Dice. I can't name another person that hasn't been deplatformed that I've seen come up 15, 10, 5 years ago. People like Derek Broze getting taken down, The Last American Vagabond taken down, Ryan. That's really, really dangerous because they back everything they're putting out up there factually. And, Derek is like an open anarchist. We can disagree about philosophy, but one thing we don't really disagree about are the facts. We can disagree on how to interpret documentation, but, I really respect his work. And when voices like that are being censored, and here's another problem with those hearings, they said there's always an appeals process. I don't know if I can say bullshit on your show, but I just said it, okay?
You can.
The idea that there's an appeals process for all these people, that's imagination land. Most of these people don't have one strike, and many people are not even given notice as to why their channel was taken down or how it was taken down. Even my channel that got demonetized for potential, remember, not harmful content, but potential harmful content, flagged 0 videos. I had 0 strikes. I do not call for violence. Okay, I don't cyberbully anybody. My language is no worse than anybody else that's popular on YouTube. So really, it's the content. But then you haven't taken any of my videos down. So what's going on here? You know what I mean? There is no recourse. It's been 6.5, almost 7 months since they demonetized me, and 5.5 months since I requested, their form, and I've gotten no response. Can you imagine going into work every day and they're like, come on in, but no, you can't make any money. We're not going to tell you why. It's under review and just under review forever. So where does it go from here? Great question, because again, there is such a monopoly with Google, Twitter, Facebook. They're obviously colluding with one another if they're censoring the same stories in the same outlets in the same time period. That alone, they should be up on collusion and racketeering charges, right? Especially because they are monopolies, and a new type of monopoly at that, one that allows data mining not only by our government, but other governments and corporate entities. I mean, we're in Looney Tunes world. So, I've been lucky enough where I got 58,000 subscribers and I've gotten more than 10% over to Rockfin. Anybody in independent media will tell you if you can get more than 10% of your audience actually over to another platform, that's a huge win at this point. We're going to have to do more than that. People will say, we'll get on a mailing list. Sorry, but Google, PayPal, MailChimp, all those things, Patreon, even GoFundMe, which I utilize, eventually will be clamped down on by the cancel crowd, by the mob. And we're seeing that more and more. And they can say it's not a monopoly, but another thing I didn't add into Google is, oh yeah, you run Google Ads, the #1 tool to reach people digitally globally. You're not a fucking monopoly? I mean, give me a break. How do you live on the internet without these services when they do have such a stranglehold on it? And again, it's going to be getting back out in the streets, holding local politicians accountable, and you want to talk about real cancel culture, we need to cancel them. None of this nonsense where you chase Rand Paul outside of a BLM protest and say her name about Breonna Taylor when the guy actually wrote the bill on no-knock warrants and to get rid of them. But going after the real politicians that stood up there and posted up for Twitter, Facebook, and Google yesterday and said it was a witch hunt.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy too, because what we're talking about right now is the new term. They got it out there, and this is what I appreciated for Senator Moran. He even said when they do this to these channels, these independent channels, it's a death sentence, right? You take away your monetization, you take away the flow of their traffic, and forget about it. They shut down. But I'm glad that we had a few people mention that, and I think this whole content moderation, that's what we're talking about right now. Black boxed of sorts. They don't, show their practices. They don't give you reasons why. And it was so interesting to see, like Dorsey yesterday. Yeah, we want to show more transparency. Now you want to show up transparency after all these friggin' years. You would pull the switch on somebody, and like you said, come to work, no money, and we're not going to tell you why. But is that the avenue to fix this, Poikinen? If we start looking at the content moderation, because I believe they don't tell you why they pull a strike on you or take you down, because they don't want you to use that against them in a court of law. If they had this out in the public, and you saw this right now in their transparency about why they're taking the Convo Couch down or the Info Warrior or Slow News Day, and they don't take somebody else down for the same type of practices, now they've just incriminated themselves and they leave themselves vulnerable to be sued. Your thoughts on that?
Well, here's the thing, and actually this happened to me yesterday. YouTube yanked a video of mine where I was talking about what was happening to Vanessa Beeley, because the BBC4 is about to unleash a series of hit pieces on her and on Eva Bartlett and on former Ambassador Peter Ford, anyone who's spoken outside of the narrative regarding Syria. They yanked the video. I got no notification. I got no warning. I no communication whatsoever. What's hilarious is that following weekend, we had Vanessa Beeley and Eva Bartlett on the Free Assange Vigil. That video's still up. I don't know. But these companies are acting like publishers. They're behaving like publishers. and they have none of the regulations or perks or negatives that publishers have. They are treated like social media companies. Until we start treating them like publishers, until they're susceptible to the same pitfalls and benefits that publishers are, we're spinning our fucking heels. And I loved in that hearing I guess Orwellian's the best way to describe. I feel like we overuse that word, Orwellian. But when Zuckerberg was talking about Section 230,
Yeah.
And the way that they framed it was so fucking Orwellian. Like, this good thing is in fact a bad thing, and here's why. And I tell people all the time that we live in a fucking cartoon. I feel like that bears reality more and more and more every day. But we've got social media monopolies with no daylight between them and the government. They're acting like publishers, but they're also acting like government censors. Like, just the straight up, I'm sorry, this information is dangerous. No, you can't do this anymore. Your channel goes away, or your video goes away, or your Twitter account goes away. So until people realize this, and until people are willing to like join me in front of YouTube as soon as I figure out a day to do it, where we go and we fucking have a real legitimate protest in front of YouTube and in front of Google. All it is us spinning our heels about what comes next. It's action, direct action. That's the only thing that's ever moved the needle in this country, and it's the only thing that ever will.
One of my frustrations with the we call them neo-progressives, but it's like the Dem socialist left in America, the ones that are fans of AOC, the ones that have been exclusively cheering on censorship, is that they do not care about freedom of speech or any sort of civil liberties, as Pasta says. What can we do? Because right now, the Hunter Biden story obviously has been entirely censored from everywhere: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and there has been a line drawn as to who are the real journalists that are going to pursue the real stories, in spite of being a very tiny number, going against the adversity of the fact that everybody else is saying, no, we can't touch that. We've even seen it touch The Intercept with Glenn Greenwald putting out his resignation today. So how is what's happening far more dangerous than the election? Because right now, everybody is concentrated on whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden's going to win. How do we get these people and shake them in a way as to be like, hello, look at what's going on in front of you, the censorship. Forget Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That's small potatoes. Let's look at what's happening here. Jason, your thoughts on that?
I think it's going to be tough, especially in a world where, Jack Dorsey's able to sit up there and say by censoring posts, he's creating an environment that is more open and honest for more people. Like, literally, he says it's for more voices to talk by censoring these types of posts. And, when Ted Cruz kept saying, well, the New York Post still can't post, he's like, well, if they bent the knee and they just deleted the original post, we're not going to bend the knee, Ted. We don't bend the knee. I have a very severe beard here. I've got a case of power beard. I don't bend the knee. You bend the knee to me. All right? That's the bottom line. And I think, unfortunately, like, for instance, with the election, it's tough for me to get into it, but I mean, I've been calling Joe Biden Zombie Joe now for 8, maybe 10 months. I mean, Trump just ran a Zombie Joe ad. I feel like I'm never going to be able to reach the Joe Biden crowd because they don't even want to hear about Hunter Biden. Can you imagine if Eric Trump or Don Jr., one way or the other, banged one of their kid daughters, their niece, when she was 14, talked about covering it up with Don Sr.? What a scandal that would be. Well, that would be a huge scandal. We've got pictures of Hunter Biden with his Johnny Wang dangle out and a 14-year-old girl who happens to be his niece behind him. And that's not in the news? So obviously, A hardcore pedophilia and cover up is not a big deal, and incest, by the way, for a Democratic candidate at this point. So we're beyond the pale there. All right. This election to me has come down to one issue: love Trump, hate Trump. And obviously I go on forever about he's disgusting with his Assange. The DOJ is a joke. Bill Barr is a bad person. What we're doing in the Middle East is atrocious. The Syria thing is crazy. His allegiance to Israel is nuts. I could continue. These are all valid arguments.
Forget about South America.
What's that?
His policies in South America with Venezuela. Disgusting.
We could continue. Yeah. There's a ton. It comes down to one thing. This guy's not running on mandatory masks, mandatory lockdowns, and a probable mandatory vaccination. The one thing I can think of that may wake people the fudge up after this is if somehow they steal the election for Biden. Because I went to Google Trends the other day, and it's an unreported story, but they have Trump winning 48 of 50 states on Google Trends in a landslide victory. Like, it's not even close. No one's touching this story. Google hasn't changed it yet, as far as I know, but I'll send you the link in the video so you can check it out. You know I'm not lying. If they somehow steal this for Biden, number one, I think there's going to be upheaval from right after the election up through January, bare minimum. Let's not. I don't think it's happy trails, and even if he wins in a landslide or if Joe Biden wins, the country goes back to normal. No way. No matter what happens, we're in total chaos. But if we get past that and somehow Biden gets in and that iron fist clamps down even further and we are talking mandatory vaccinations and we are talking, like he says in his ads, I'll decide when and if, or it's if and when we go back to work. If. Motherfucker, you're supposed to be in there for 4 years. What do you mean if we go back to work? That's in his ads. So if you see mandatory vaccinations, larger lockdowns, more poverty in this country, more restrictions, maybe that's it. I don't know. I am shocked as far as we went. I didn't want to leave my state. I love New York. I love my little upstate community, but I was going to the protests. I was seeing how not only were they not being covered nationally, they weren't even being covered by the local media in many respects. And we had hundreds of people out in the Capitol about this vaccination issue. So it's time to go. I mean, when they put it on paper that not only we're talking about COVID 1984 mandatory vaccines, the New York State Bar Association saying the Constitution of the United States has failed us and that we need it nationwide, but then mandatory vaccines of other things that go all the way to HPV for my 9-year-old daughter without my consent. I mean, they put this on paper and passed it through the Senate. It's time to get the fuck out of there. So I know I get worked up and I get emotional.
It's okay.
But I look at it right now as those are real issues. They're issues I should be able to discuss on the second largest search engine and first largest video platform in the world, one I've been on for 13 years, one I helped build with one of the most viral videos ever just by competition of Google alone. Without loose change, is Google Video, as successful as quickly? Eventually they're a Leviathan, no doubt. But that really launched them. The fact that you could start watching full documentaries and you couldn't do that on YouTube. You still had the 10-minute clip. A lot of people forget that Google wasn't the original YouTube, that they actually did competition. They had an alternate platform. They took a huge share of the market because they had all the resources in the world. And then they bought up their competitor.
That's what they did. They just swallowed them whole.
That's right. They monetized it and they took advantage of people. And then here came the censorship. And the censorship's not new. It's just way more widespread now.
Yeah. It's funny when you say you'll never reach the Biden people too, because I went to sleep last night going, do I really want Trump to win over Biden? Because I imagine Biden winning. And after what I witnessed completely, like I was hoping for some ray of hope from the Senate, from some Democrats to be like, about let's get this together. Let's open up the platform for discourse so that we can talk. The way to protect free speech is by more speech, not less speech, but we didn't see it. We saw the exact opposite. But, when we're talking about that Biden clan, that kind of like neo-progressive and neoliberal, whatever you want to do, they're not too nuanced, are they at all? They already are they make their decisions based upon feelings. Like, we're going to protect your feelings, like Jason said about, Jack Dorsey. What's that?
It's worse than that.
Well,
They
go ahead,
base
elaborate, because my question to you is like the feelings. How do we get that by that and get these people to pay attention to policy and actually procedures that are going on for like what we talk about when it comes to censorship and freedom of speech? When we talk about the elections, the way we run these things with black box proprietary software, how do we get them out of that feelings mode, Poikinen, and into pay attention to the nuances of what happens if you let this shit slide?
I mean, can we?
Can we?
So I don't like Matt Stoller. Matt Stoller.
I know
is
you don't
not-
like Stoller.
I don't
You
either.
know,
But
but he was spot on when he called that DSA Jacobin crowd frightened authoritarian children.
Yeah.
What's happened is that they derive their feelings from what a cult of personality figure tells them. So these aren't even genuine emotions or genuine feelings. This is a like a call and response, like at a church. And that's exactly what it is. The same energy that people put into a supernatural belief system or a faith-based belief system has gone into political identity. And we've deified politicians, we've deified certain people in media, whether it's Rachel Maddow or fucking Tucker Carlson or fucking Jimmy Dore for whatever, like if I guess in this instance it would be Tom Hartman's Padawan, Kyle Kalinske.
He's the Padawan.
He's Tom Hartman's Padawan. Yeah,
you don't want to be Tom Hartman's Padawan.
I know.
He's getting that limp lightsaber any day now. But I mean, no, but people have deified these people. They put their religious energy into a talking point system.
Yeah.
And then their feelings are derived from that. So what we basically have to do is the same steps that you would take to deprogram someone who's been in a cult for 15 years. You have to very, very gingerly, and I don't mean dye your hair red, just gently try to deprogram these people, because the awakening that it's not coming. It's not like whether it's the awakening in the Q sense or the awakening in the sense that like people are going to wake up one day and just it'll suddenly dawn on them, fuck, I've been living a lie. No, that's not going to happen naturally. You have to very gently and very patiently talk to people about this. It's fucking exhausting. Knowing shit is exhausting. It's exhausting. But if you believe in the work that you're doing, it's worth talking to people about. And I think we all believe in the work that we're doing.
So let me jump in here really quick and even use Tucker Carlson as an example, because as much as Tucker's been kind of deified, he's also been extremely vilified from the other side. So in other words, if he puts something out, the other side doesn't even want to look at it. So there's a story out early today. I covered it on my live show on Rockfin every single weekday, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Everybody tune in. Where
that?
where Tucker Carlson,
go ahead, Jay.
where Tucker Carlson went on air and he basically said that he had all this documentation that was leaked to him via the Hunter Biden story, okay, and that they had the documents and they had the package and they were in Los Angeles. They wanted to ship it to New York. Now, the story is vague on what was in there. He just said it was damning evidence against the Biden family that still hasn't come out. Whether it was real, all that stuff, I don't know. But he goes on air and he says that they shipped it, and the very popular shipping company, he didn't reveal who it was on the air, said they lost it. Okay? So the big joke with my lefty friends, I'm from New York, was that this was a big fake news story that Tucker put out, and that his fake news documents didn't exist. He was doing this for publicity. Now, I had already done a story on this and said, I don't know whether they're real. It could be a Dan Rather type setup where they have you publish some fake documents via the Bush military records and then discredit everything you're talking about. Because, Rather at the time was anti-war, anti-Iraq, talking about the weapons of mass destruction. It could be that. I don't know. But at no point did I think to myself, yeah, Tucker, this is a big publicity stunt. So you should have seen the jokes. Fake news. The dog ate my conspiracy theory. Like a dozen different people. So the first thing I did is I go, I don't know if you guys have seen the contents of these laptops, But let's put aside the pics, the videos, and the text messages, okay, that prove corruption in the Ukraine and China, by the way. And the fact that we know they're real. Who cares where they came from? And they're not hacked, right? Forget about all that stuff. I go, how about the picture that I've only seen on the Gateway Pundit of Hunter Biden, again, with his thing out, with a 14-year-old girl,
Johnny
Joe Biden's
Langdon.
granddaughter behind him. Yeah. Okay. And I posted the picture. It was fully censored, right? My post is taken down. I got no notice. I got no strike. It was just taken down. So then 15 minutes later, the story breaks that the Daily Beast, a pretty left-leaning publication, got in touch with UPS. UPS found the package and found the documents. So no matter what you want to believe, the documents exist. Tucker wasn't making this up, and I just put that in there as my next post. I go, so I don't know what kind of mental gymnastics everybody's going to do now, but yes, he didn't make it up. The UPS must be in on the fake news story you guys were all talking about. Fucking crickets, bro. Just crickets.
And the Daily Beast in on the fake news story. By the way, dude, fuck the Daily Beast. All right, let's just get that out of the way up front. The Daily Beast is digital fish wrap for fucking Hillary Clinton dead enders. In fact, Chelsea Clinton's on the board of the Daily Beast to make sure that what they're putting out is digital fish wrap for HRC dead enders. Smeared me, by the way. I did a video on Lil CIA Pete last year, and oh boy, did that get them mad. So they did a hit piece on me, got Tim Pool to do a video on their hit piece smearing me. And by the way, double fuck Tim Pool, because that guy dude, fucking just doxing. He's a horrible.
Is there anybody you do like besides us on this show and Jason down there?
You have no idea.
You're on with everybody who likes you right now. All the people who like you are in one show together.
That I have, Pasta. I've got a lot of love. There are a handful of people that I don't like, and a bunch of systems that I will not tolerate. Right, but I do tend to view people as subjected to those systems most of the time. You know, if they're the people like Robert Cadlick or like Tara O'Toole or Ghislaine Maxwell or a number of other people that enforce those systems, yeah, they show up on the fucking shit list, and the Daily Beast is part of that 100%.
So let's talk about this for a minute, because I consider myself a super, super lefty. Pasta can tell you, like super lefty,
left of Stalin,
way left of Stalin. Stalin's authoritarian. I was not
still left of him though.
But I'm extremely anti-imperialist and extremely anti-censorship, and I have found myself completely at odds with a lot of the people that I thought were supposed to be allies. Like Steve knows, like these people online attack people like us left and right when we are, for instance, not going into the bandwagon of attacking Donald Trump every 5 seconds, because that is a popular thing to do, or of praying to AOC and how wonderful she is, because that is the popular thing to do. So for me, it's like, okay, so how like I don't understand then what somebody like me does, because then I am forced to admit that when I'm looking at censorship and when I'm looking at what's going on right now, is there a lesser of evils when it comes to this? I mean, is Joe Biden worse for America than Donald Trump? And I find myself asking that question, and sort of in a way, the way I've been attacked by a lot of the neo-progressive left and a lot of the, I call them blue MAGA, because they have literally come at me with really racist crap because I'm not voting for Joe Biden. So I ask, is there an argument to a Trump presidency versus a Joe Biden presidency? Jason, I want to hear your thoughts, and then Steve as well.
Yeah, there is. Okay. As much as I hate to admit it, and
I kind of knew that was coming from you, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I listen. I'm going to say this because I think it's important. Before the man got elected, and this was against Hillary Clinton, before we even get Joe Biden in, I go, look, this guy has three things that I'm willing to accept. Number one, he's a misogynist. All right. I never was like, he didn't bang Stormy Daniels for money. Of fucking course he did. I mean, come on. That was a give me a break bar. I mean, he's been married 3 times. The guy ran beauty pageants. I was a huge Stern fan back in the day. I used to watch those interviews. Listen, he's never been shy about that. So we'll get that out of the way too. He's a gangster. The guy literally built Atlantic City. You don't build casino towns without organized crime. If you believe that you do, you have a slight mental retardation you might need to take care of. 3, he's an actor. The guy's been on television since I was wee high. Okay, forget about his, television show and you're fired. The guy was very smart. He embedded himself with the wrestling community, which probably had never voted in full force. Talk about a silent majority. That's huge. Look at how they took over entertainment, the stock market. So even then with the WWF, he was smart that way. He was always on Oprah. He always put himself into the media. All right, he was all those things. So he's an actor. You're getting all those things. Now, compared to Joe Biden at this point, let's just look at some base policies. Trump never was like, you know what? Segregation, busing, good times. He didn't do that in the 80s. He certainly didn't do it in the 90s. You know who did? Joe fucking Biden did. All right. Number 2, during the 90s, Trump was actually financing campaigns for people like Jesse Jackson. In fact, he was a Democrat his whole life. He's a lifelong Democrat. Let's be honest about it. Those are the same kind of policies, 90s Democratic policies that are being passed now if people don't remember that far back. I get it. I'm an old man. I'm 41. Some people aren't that old, but that's the truth, okay? So while that's going on, Joe Biden is giving eulogies at former KKK members' funerals. Robert Byrd amongst them, who mentored him. All right, so you look at these time periods, he's passing criminal legislation that goes after minority communities. He's talking about racial jungles. I mean, the thing about race on its face just does not fly with me. If you think, I don't believe that Trump is a racist in that sense at all. I really don't. If you want to talk about racist policies, look at the Middle East. And we're all responsible for that. Everybody forgets, you want to talk about people of color, we're bombing the fuck out of them in Yemen all the time because of our alliance with Saudi Arabia. You want to talk about people of color, what about the Palestinians and our relationship with Israel? Okay, so those are the racist policies that I'm actually concerned about, the ones in reality. The talking points about kids in cages, again, they won't sit there and go to the 5 minutes of the debate where he go, who put them in the cages, Joe? Who wrote the policy, Joe? Who put him in the cages, Joe?
Who built those cages?
Yeah, who built those cages, Joe? So again, these are the mental gymnastics, right? Trump hates Mexicans. He puts kids in cages. Let's ignore where that policy originates from. I'm in a reality sense. So, he's given us some wins, in my opinion. That doesn't mean I love the guy. It's just, again, when it comes down to it, if these were normal circumstances and the country hadn't been locked down and we were not facing what I believe is an automation nation, transhumanist agenda via this COVID-1984, I might have a protest vote. I might vote Joe Jorgensen or somebody else or write somebody in, right? That's normally the way I go because I don't like voting against what I believe in. But when it comes down to it, I got 2 little nieces upstairs and I don't want them getting forced jabs. And as far as I know, this guy's not going to force a jab on my nieces. So on that issue alone or on me, I'm voting for him. And with no other, and I have no illusions that, again, this agenda will not march forward and that day's victory. Just like, I remember when Alex Jones was popping champagne after the election when Trump won, he's sitting there, we did it. We beat the New World Order. Fuck no, we didn't, man. The New World Order is an idea set of control. And it's not held by one person or one group. All right. I want to make that extremely clear. And we march towards it every single day of our lives, whether we realize it or not.
Steve.
So I already voted. And I did what I've done since 2008, which is vote for Cynthia McKinney. I wrote her in. I've been writing her in since 2012. One of life's great ironies is that in 2008, I got called a racist for voting for Cynthia McKinney because I didn't vote for Barack Obama. Clearly by someone who had never seen Cynthia McKinney. At any rate, Chris Hedges said it best when he said that that Biden is far worse than Donald Trump. Trump inherited the system. Joe Biden was its architect.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that. I do, because there's 40 some years of evidence to support it. That doesn't mean that I want Donald Trump to win this thing. But at least with 4 years of Trump, you get a little bit more than the token resistance that the Democratic Party shows. Not that they actually do, but that they show. And it inspires people who take their cues from, mainstream media or from indie media that exists to support the duopoly. And they go out and they do actions and they get in the streets, and hopefully that's a learning process, and people realize, okay, a sanctioned by the TV or by the Democratic Party protest isn't a protest, it's a parade. I'm done with fucking parades. I'm going to really protest something now. Hopefully that occurs. With Biden Harris, because let's be perfectly honest, there is no way that Joe Biden serves a full year, let alone a full term. No way that happens. We will have the dead-eyed, soulless servant of power that is Kamala Harris in the Oval Office as soon as they can fucking get her in there. That will put the left to sleep. That will put the left to sleep entirely, and all of the people who've been put to sleep by Q will be running around in this little, confirmation bias circle jerk that they were right all the time, but now you can't do anything about it. They've all been deactivated within 3 years, completely deactivated a giant, normally mobile portion of the right. They're gone. They're off the fucking playing field. So you get unimpeded deep state fuckery for 4 to 8 years out of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, whereas you get at least some pushback in the form of genuine direct action against Trump, just because of how slanderously negative the media coverage on him is.
Yeah. You know what? I never thought he was a racist full-fledged. His policies are definitely
green racist.
Yeah.
Donald
But he
Trump
was a
is
race baiter.
green racist.
He's a race baiter.
He's a
for
race
sure.
baiter. He'll, you know what I'm saying? He baited people in, and that first, I mean, that's, once you do that, you can never go back, especially when you know the establishment left media is going to come after you and hold on to that. And that's why they were able to sell that narrative. A lot of people don't understand what's going on in Mexico, how the guns that from here get in there and the murder rate is higher than it is in Afghanistan, Yemen, and all those countries combined and stuff. But the people who do know that, once you whistle that and you kind of send that signal, they pull on to it, and then it's all about keeping us safe, but then you're going to be thrown as a racist narrative and whatnot. We're running out of time here, but I just want to ask you guys about the elections real quick, about what your thoughts about the elections and how they're going to happen, because, you know, we just came from today where we were talking about black box voting, and we still have proprietary software in 99.9% of our tabulation machines across the country. No, this honest conversation that the mail-in ballots are safe and secure when they are not. That there's no serious tracking on these ballots, and these ballots get outside the chain of custody because they are harvested in many states, and it's legal. So what do you think the tactics and what's going to happen? And can the Democrats steal this election, or can the Republicans steal this election, doing what they normally do, which is kind of disenfranchising people from the voter rolls and knocking them into provisionals or don't giving them a proper ballot? I mean, to me, it's like who out cheats who. Your thoughts, Jay?
You know, that's a tough one because recently, a couple weeks back, I got the privilege of speaking with Greg Palast, who I admire, who's done amazing work on voter fraud for well over a decade.
He's jumping up there. Steve's jumping up there because I probably feel that.
No, I saw that, and that's why I'm laughing.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, if Steve saw it, he knows that I didn't just roll with the punches, that obviously I challenged Palast on a lot of it. But my thing is, I'm not about left or right. I'm about right and wrong. And obviously, I respect Greg Palast. I mean, I think the best democracy money can buy. I think, his work with Bev Harris back in the day, black box voting, really important stuff. He was trying to sell that narrative of intimidation, of racism, of the Proud Boys, of the Boogaloo Boys, that I don't even know if the Boogaloo Boys actually exist. Look, I know that the Proud Boys and Gavin McInnes, and that's a real thing.
They're not the poor boys?
According to Joe, According to Zombie Joe, again, the poor boys. It's just ridiculous. Dude, again, cartoon level shit. But
Yeah.
you have all this stuff where Palast is saying they're going to intimidate people, and now Roger Stone controls them. And I said to him, I don't see that happening. He goes, well, 20 years ago when Roger Stone had the people down in Florida, I go, look, that was 20 years ago. I think we're in a very different situation. I don't think that this is going to be a voter intimidation thing. I'm more concerned about the mail-in ballots, like you said, that he dismissed. And at the end of the day, I asked him, I go, look, I got one last question in. And I said to him, don't you think it's concerning when you got a guy like John Podesta, who is playing, I think he was playing, Joe Biden, and William Crystal is playing Donald Trump in a war game, that if Trump wins in a landslide, they don't concede? I go, doesn't that show that there's a bipartisan effort to try to get this guy out of here, love him or hate him? And he goes, well, that's democracy. Really? So two power brokers that are about anything but fucking democracy, John Podesta, a neoliberal, and then a neocon in William Crystal on both sides, colluding with one another to say even if the American people's will is overwhelming in a landslide that they want Trump, we're going to stop it. That's democracy, Greg. I wish I had been able to make that point, but he basically answered and the mob was going after him. I don't know what happened to Greg Palast.
He's not modernized. He's living back in the days when it was years ago. Because I texted
we've
him.
interviewed him.
I said, dude, why did you name the book "How Trump Stole the Election" when you even admit inside your chapters that they stole it from Bernie Sanders? I mean, how can but he's got to sell books and
Marketing, baby.
He's like that band that goes out there that just plays the classic hits all the time. Whenever you see Greg Palast talk, he'll talk about the Stacey Abrams situation because, once again, it was like Florida years ago, a very racist kind of situation where they stole it from minorities to win the election. But that's not what's going on.
But that's not the vast majority of.
But it's a different era nowadays. It's a different times. And if you look at these contracts, and we've been fortunate enough to look at Los Angeles' contract with K&H, it's frightening. Frightening. I'm sorry, Steve. You can get your time in. My bad.
Oh no, it's all good, man. I look that 0.1% of open source voter software, that's Cyber Reason. That's a partnership between DARPA and Unit 8200 to bring us secure voting software. And that's where that's headed. This is what when he was talking about. This has all been. You can go to Last American Vagabond or Unlimited Hangout and look at the information. Cyber Reason is poised to step in on election day or immediately after election day and say, well, look, the voting machines can't be trusted. And if they can't be trusted, obviously you need a company that you can trust. And look, we have this open sourced voting software, and that's what all you guys have been screaming about for years. So here you go. DARPA and Unit 8200 software for your votes. You got that. Carbine 911 is poised to step in, which is it's a company that Jeff Epstein had ties to, that again is another Unit 8200 based company that has worked with ICE and worked with a number of other just insidious fucking 3-letter agencies. And it's set up to take over our predictive programming and our predictive let's see, pre-crime is what I'm getting at. By the way, we have pre-crime in this country. It's something that's being rolled out right now. It's been tested in several major cities. Carbine 911 is poised to take over the emergency response system, as well as help law enforcement agencies determine who is about to commit a crime. Now, if that's
Skynet
not
taking
going to
over
be,
eventually?
Pardon?
Skynet? When are they taking over everything?
There's actually a company called Skynet that exists.
Listen,
I mean, it's not the Skynet, but there is a company called Skynet that exists and registered as.
Yo, he's got to understand, man. Yo, Skynet took over a while ago, brother. Like just so you understand what's going on with Elon Musk and Neuralink and Starlink, that's it. That's the rap, man. Starlink is literally being mirrored with DARPA openly to put up the Army's military internet. Okay. Neuralink is 50-year-old DARPA technology that's already been around. Nothing about it is new. Nothing.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, guys, we got to wrap this up. We're out of time. We have another interview coming on up, but I just like to say too, thank you so much for joining us. It's funny because we did talk about this whole situation when it comes to censorship, where the Democrats are behind, and then we started talking about elections. That's the other thing scary too, as well. They're behind on elections. They're just acting like there's no problems with the mail-in when Jimmy Carter said years ago that this is the area most ripe for fraud, and they don't even want to look at ballot harvesting and get rid of it.
No,
so we're screwed with
It's a
that.
right-wing talking point.
It is a right-wing
you can't
talking
touch it.
point from left-wingers here and independent thinkers like the Info Warrior, Jason Burmis, and Slow News Day, Steve Poikonen. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you on November 4th if the planet doesn't explode after this election, and we can talk more about what's going on. So thank you guys so much. For Pasta Jardula and Johnny Sue with the Info Warrior, Jason Burmis, and Slow News Day, Steve Poikonen.
Convo out.
We'll see you later, guys.
Bye, guys.